Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it here with us on NACTV. I'm Eoin Devereux with the Banner Press, welcoming you to this week's edition of the program, as we are now past the midway point of 2025. God, the years just seem to fly by now, but it's, that's the passage of time. We're going to try and make the next half hour fly by for you as well, or maybe it'll drag. We'll find out together. I'm joined this week by Joshua Jackson. Joshua, good to have you here this week.
Hello, and to your comment on we're more than halfway through the year, that surprised me. I actually had to count on my hands and think, oh man, we are more done than not.
You want more done than not. That's kind of dark. But to cap off on that as well, I ran across this. This has nothing to do with the newspaper, but if I got to be depressed about this, you got to be depressed about this as well. On Instagram and Reels and all those little things on there, there's been a lot of things that have popped up on my feed as of late saying that as of July 2nd, 2025, we are closer to the year 2050 than we are the year 2000. And that, as a Generation X member, just hurt my bones. Like, I can feel the rheumatoid arthritis just slowly seeping into my knees as we speak right now. That one just hurt me on a deep down level. Now, Josh, you're young. You're like 9 years old.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Weird puberty happening here.
You've got plenty of time ahead of you, type thing. But for an old bag of bones like me, that one just right in the rib cage.
True. Yep. I was barely conscious in the 90s, as I was born in 98. So doesn't hit me as hard as it hits you. But it is, hearing that stat, it's just absolutely crazy to think.
It happened to me. It'll happen to you, too. No, I'll be young forever.
We can dream.
Yes. Oh, let's get into the show here. We're talking about the passage of time, and we're coming in around that time again. It feels like it was only a few weeks ago that I myself went down and covered the Carberry Fair and Races, an annual event for the community of Carberry that the Ag Society puts on, and a tremendous event. But it turns out a whole year passed in between. And we got a new perspective and a new set of eyes that were able to go down there and see all the entertaining aspects of that event for themselves. And that's why I'm going to throw it over to you, Josh, because you were able to do it for the very first time this year.
Yeah, surprisingly, my very first Carberry fair and races. It was a really cool experience. I went in blind, not even knowing where their fairground was, so I didn't even get lost, so that's how good I did. But it was a very cool experience just to see how their community rallies together. I was there in the evening, so I didn't even get to see a lot of what they did in the day. They had a petting zoo, big bouncy houses and bouncy castles, and they just had a lot going on. But the coolest thing that I have never got to see before had to have been the races. It was really fun to photograph.
Oh, yeah.
As you can see on the front page, but I had never seen any form of racing like that. I've seen barrel racing, but that doesn't compare to chariot racing. It was really cool. I hate gore and stuff, so I was very afraid that a pony would get injured, but no, they didn't. It was a very great time, and yeah, kudos to the town of Carberry for putting on just such a great event. I would like to see more rodeo and horse type events in Neepawa. I don't know if there are very many that come here, but we have an absolutely beautiful fairground, so more of that here in Neepawa. Although, we don't have a racing track.
Yeah.
But, we could build one.
Well, geez, all right. All right, let's calm down with spending other people's money right now on that. Let's get roads that are flat first, and then we'll worry about casinos and all that other stuff. Racing tracks and casinos and big fancy arenas for an NHL team. Well, all the things that Neepawa deserves.
Well, Owen, you segued this perfectly, because speaking of our roads in Neepawa and their state, we're getting some money to help that, and not from me. I can't afford what the province puts up. So let me fill you in on a few details here.
Fill you in on the fill-in of the roads.
Hey, we're cooking here. So I guess it will be this week, the last week, sometime within the last 7 days. the province of Manitoba pledged $4.8 million to assist the town of Neepawa in upgrading 2 sections of Highway 16. So this funding is going to help improve access to the community's new health center and upcoming school. The town was notified back in March that it was approved to receive $2 million to help extend Hamilton Street east along the south periphery of the new hospital. So we're going to see a new road there. As well, they are also giving an additional $2.8 million to help and upgrade the Highway 16 right there, as it does. It's a busy highway. I didn't realize this because you have Highway 5 and then you have Highway 16 and then you'll have the hospital. So that's going to become a very busy road. So they are putting in the money for that, and that is from the Manitoba Growth, Renewal and Opportunity. So very great to see that we are getting some money to be put towards our roads. Eoin, as a long supporter of having smooth roads in Neepawa.
I know that's a controversial opinion to have, but I believe roads should be smooth. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of brushback on that, but hey, that's just what I believe. That's where I was raised. That's what I'm all about. But you're right about that. It's wonderful to hear that there's going to be a little bit extra put into it, because there is a little bit of frustration among the masses of the community of Neepawa when they see all this work going on the new suburbs and new developments and all that going on, and there's a little bit of wonder about how come we can't put that same investment into our existing roads, because there are some roads in Neepawa, let's be honest with ourselves, they're crap. They are just complete and utter crap. And I'm trying not to pick on Neepawa on that, because I've been in other communities where the roads are worse, genuinely worse. So, but there are people that are wondering, you're putting all this investment into the new, what about the old? What about the existing? I genuinely do hope that this additional money, the 4.8 you said, right? 4?
Yes.
Okay, I'm hoping because of the 4.8 coming in, a little bit more than they maybe had expected, that the town itself will be able to take some of that money that they had probably planned on investing into the new development and move it back over into some of the existing streets and all that. I genuinely hope that is something we are able to do. I don't know if we will, I don't know if we can, I don't know the financial details of what commitments have to be made on a municipal level for an expansion like this, but it would be wonderful to see, and it's wonderful to see from the province as well. Every little bit helps. This extra money coming in is money that you and I do not have to spend. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very much a positive, a thumbs up for the province of Manitoba for helping the community of Neepawa and seeing how important it is for everyone in our area to see this development move forward in a positive way. So if you got a moment or two, you can find that, and of course the Carberry story we talked about previously. They're both on page 1 of this week's edition of the Banner Press, and they continue on inside the pages of the paper, where you can find those and so many other stories. Always remember, within 30 different communities throughout Western Manitoba, you can find a physical copy of the Neepawa Banner Press. And if you're not able to find a physical copy, always remember to check it out online on our website. So that's my little pitch and spiel for the moment. So before we go back into the news that is and the news that was, this is a story coming up from Casper Werahan. They were able to sort of do this, and we love being able to do these stories because it is such a positive for the community, and it shows what this community, the positivity that people see within it. We have a feature on a young professional, a young doctor, with roots in Neepawa, Dr. Sidney McLaughlin. Now, that last name probably sounds very familiar to you. It's because McLaughlin's very well-known, well-regarded family within Neepawa. Obviously, if you've bought a truck in the last decade or so, you've been over at McLaughlin's and you've purchased it there. So it's wonderful that Casper was able to chase this down, Josh, I thought, and share the details behind it.
Yeah, I thought it was phenomenal. I will go into a little bit of the meat and potatoes into the story before I give some additional thoughts here. They are positive, don't you worry. But yeah, so Dr. McLaughlin completed, English is hard, her first day of a 2-year residency for the Rural Family and Medicine last week. The medical residency is actually a part of her employment with Shared Health and is being based out of the Beautiful Plains Medical Clinic. In her residency, it will provide her with experience in a bunch of situations, as well as with her time at the clinic. She will also be at the Neepawa Hospital's emergency department and the operating room. It's so cool. In a quote, she said, "My family's all here, and I'm just so excited and thankful to give back to the community because this is the community that raised me," which is absolutely amazing. Dr. McLaughlin's prior experience, she was at the University of Manitoba for the first 4 years to get her Bachelor's of Science, and then another 4 years specifically for medical school. So that's amazing. And this has not been the first time that Dr. McLaughlin has been in the community. She spent 8 weeks of employment with the Beautiful Plains Medical Clinic during the summer of 2022. And then in 2023, she gained a lot of experience throughout Manitoba, including right here in Neepawa, Killarney, St. Rose, and Dauphin. So it's just really great to see that we have more local students who have been born and raised here coming back to Neepawa. That is what we need. It is so gratifying for me as someone who has left this community and came back to this community to see people that I know and I have grew up with in a way coming back to put roots down. And that is what we need more of. Now, Owen, I have $1 million question for you. Other than housing, because housing and childcare are two very obvious barriers, what do we gotta do to get the kids back to Neepawa, Owen?
Horse racing track.
There we go.
Going back right to the beginning.
That's the answer.
We need legal gambling. That's what we need here. All the kids love legal gambling. No, but you make a very valid point, and that's a positive thing from this story as well. Dr. McLaughlin talks about the rural perspective of it and how she sees value in being a practitioner in rural communities. So many doctors, it seems, and we hear about this on mainstream media. I'm going to correct that. I always hate when the term mainstream media is used. Mainstream media is not the correct term. Corporate media is the correct term. When you hear about corporate media, about the needs and how all physicians want to go into the big cities and all that, and they don't see value in rural practices, but Dr. McLaughlin talks about how she does see value in it and how it is something that can enrich her abilities and all that. And with the creation of the new health center in Neepawa, that is going to create a lot of opportunities in our area for physicians, for nurses, for all types of medical practitioners to be able to enhance their abilities. And we also have a top-notch medical clinic. Quite honestly, for a community the size of Neepawa, the Beautiful Plains Medical Clinic is top tier. I have family in Brandon. I have lived in Brandon. I have lived in Portage la Prairie. I have lived in Winnipeg, and I have seen little on the community levels some med clinics, and they do not compete in any way, shape, or form with what we have here in Neepawa. So that's something as well that is a great selling point for our community. So to see something like this and to be able to share a story like this, Casper did a tremendous job with it. So I do hope that you will take a few minutes of your time and learn a little bit more about that. So you can find that on page 2 of this week's edition.
I would also like to add, I think that we've seen Neepawa being the 3rd largest growing town in Manitoba and the 13th largest in Canada. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how Neepawa's medical field evolves within the next, I'll pin it down, 5 to 7 years. We have a beautiful medical facility in the Beautiful Plains, I can't think of the name, the doctor's clinic. There we go. And we are also right smack dab in getting a new hospital. So I know that the town of Neepawa has been really ramping up their recruitment efforts. They have a little board, a little committee, and it's been a big rural thing. So I'm very excited for the potential that we are going to see even more students come back, even more people that have been born and raised in Neepawa area for this new hospital, because this is going to be another new, beautiful, gorgeous, top-of-the-line facility that we will have to then hopefully help recruit and train doctors. Now, I've lived in the city, I've lived in Neepawa, and there are definitely drawbacks from cities to town, but I will say it, I am optimistic to see what this town will look like in 5 to 7 years when we have the new hospital built, when we have the new school built, and the big one, when we actually have a lot of houses on Project 320, so we can actually have places to live and we don't have to live in our family's basements. Wonderful.
There's a little hidden behind there, but we'll see about that. Sorry, just had to...
It is what it is.
You're not
in this economy.
Yeah. You're not imagining things. I'm just stripping down a little bit here. Keep your mind out the gutter. It's just in the studio. It is so friggin' warm during the summer. Wearing a jacket was a bad idea today. It was not the best. It was not the smartest thing to do. So I'm paying for it right now. By the time this show is over, I'm just going to be melted ice cream, quite honestly. Just a puddle in this chair here. So
how many times throughout the show can you take off and put on your jacket again? That's what I want to know.
You know what? Actually, one of these shows, I'm going to have to actually try something a little bit different, where every time it cuts back to me, just something is subtly changed. Just something out of nowhere is just completely and utterly not the same as it was. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe in a future edition.
Now, Eoin, we've been talking a lot of traveling and people coming back to Neepawa in this edition of the Neepawa Banner Press, and I will tee up a wonderful story that you actually wrote, Eoin, talking about Canada's last trailblazer and a former Neepawa resident who came back to, in a sense, kind of give a donation to the library and pay it forward.
Well, again, it was very interesting. I had no idea about the background in terms of this. So to learn a little bit about Keith Byram, who again was raised in Oberon, just a little south of Neepawa. His formative years were spent there. He still has very much a love and respect for the area. Also was part of Neepawa as well in terms of education and all that. Now lives up in the territories, up in Yellowknife, I believe, or Yukon. Let me see here. One of the territories there, Yukon, I believe. Mm-hmm. And he has a new book out where he shares his experience from the 90s about helping to build in Antarctica. It was a story I had no idea about. I went in there completely unaware of what this was all about. And to hear him explain it, because they did a formal little presentation at the Neepawa Library recently in which he gifted his book to the library. And he shares his experiences helping to build a research station in Antarctica, all the trials and the tribulations that went through that process of trying to create something from nothing in a desolate, cold, icy wasteland, if we're being honest. But him being from Canada, I'm sure he was used to that. But it's fascinating to watch how the concept of frontierism, we think it's dead. We think it's dead nowadays, and maybe even in the 90s. The 90s wasn't quite as ancient as some people make it out to be. There was still technology. We still had phones. The dinosaurs were just recently no longer roaming the earth, Josh, all right?
That's how that time period works. I was confused.
Yeah. So once Keith was able to get rid of all the dinosaurs off of Antarctica, he was able to build the runway. But it's amazing to me to see that type of endeavor moving forward like that. So impressive to see someone from our area to go forward in this and to share his experiences like that. So if you go down to the Neepawa Library, I want you to check this out. I'm going to be very specific here. The name of the book, Antarctica Runway, Yukon's Pelly Construction Builds for the British Antarctic Survey. That's a long title, But trust me, it's worth it. Track it down, read a little bit about it, learn about the experience, because it was just so darn fascinating. And I was very appreciative of Keith to be able to share a little bit about that on the pages of the paper. But if you want to get a more elaborate perspective on it, that's why you got to get yourself a library card. If you don't have one already, head on down to the Neepawa Library and check it out for yourself.
As PBS and Arthur once taught me in my young years, having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. And Eoin, I think you might have actually missed one of the biggest pieces of this story. Not only has he written a book and has it published, it is sold off, flying off the shelves. They are talking about recreating a second print of it, but as well, back a few months ago, Keith Byram was actually appointed to a member of the Order of Canada, which is presented by the Governor General and recognizes outstanding achievement and dedication to the community and service to the nation. So, not only did he put out a very fascinating looking book that I would like to read, this man was also given one of the highest honors here in Canada. So it's just really cool to see those local connections and what people do with their lives, and just crazy the little Neepawa connections and area connections that happen.
Really nice to see someone that does have those local roots, as Josh said, seeing the value of coming back to their communities, coming back to their hometowns, their home regions when they were a youth, and giving back to them. This is a wonderful example of that. Let's segue a little bit more positivity. Very glad to be able to share this one. We talked a little bit about this in a previous edition of the Banner Press and the story behind the stories. But now we're able to elaborate a little bit more. One of our own, the EDO for the town of Neepawa, Marilyn Cruz, was recently honored. And Josh, you've got the details.
Of course. So, Marilyn Crew was recognized at the Economic Development Association of Manitoba with their Award of Distinction. It was an award ceremony that was held in June, and the Award of Distinction is given to someone in the field of economic development whose accomplishments have made a significant contribution and demonstrated exceptional best practices like providing leadership, mentorship, and motivation to fellow community development practitioners cultivating community economic development in Manitoba. So I think Marilyn is very deserving of this award. It was an absolute pleasure to interview her and learn more about her insight behind the town. Now, Crew said she's very, very proud of the work that she's done for the town of Neepawa, from the storefront improvement program to the pitch competition, What's the Big Idea, as well as the Neepawa Training Center. But she said it's so much more than the big projects. It's the little things like the collaborations that happens, the meetings she attends, the ideas that she pitches to the town council. There's a lot more behind the scenes than we really do know. Crew is just very excited and very passionate about the town of Neepawa and the growth that's happening. We got talking about it, and she said that some of her biggest priorities is to make sure that Project 320 is going underway smoothly, and we can get that first phase underway, as well as helping finding new daycare options and housing options for people, two critical things that we need in this town, and she is helping put in the work and effort to keep Neepawa amazing. I was going to use a certain buzzword, but slogan, if you will, Eoin, but we're not making anything great again for something that's already pretty good.
Make Neepawa pretty good. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but it's still a good and valid thing to be trying to progress and trying to sort of do as a community. And Marilyn has done a tremendous job. We've talked about Marilyn in so many different ways over the years, some of the endeavors she does, some of the projects she's been a part of. So it's wonderful when people who are doing good get recognized for doing that good. You can find that story in this week's edition. All right, we only got a few minutes left, so we're going to just really rifle through the last couple things we got here. This one is probably something we're going to follow up at the end of the month as well, is there is some new ownership of a local business, the Rhythm Cycle Club, which is located in the former co-op building, and has been for several years, is under new ownership at the end of this month. Tara McCarthy and Landon Cameron will be taking over the ownership of that facility moving forward. You know both of them most likely very well. Tara is big in terms of volunteerism, in terms of Neepawa minor hockey, the Neepawa Titans, does many things with baseball during the year. Landon, of course, you know, is the golf pro and the general manager for the Neepawa Titans hockey team. The golf pro and general manager for Neepawa Golf Club, and an assistant coach with the Neepawa Titans hockey team. Also volunteers, does a lot of things for minor hockey as well. Their sports pedigree, their fitness and athletics pedigree in Neepawa is rock solid. And this recent purchase is just going to solidify that even more. So it's wonderful to see people that see value in fitness and training and all that and want to continue to help with that. So you can find out a little bit more in this week's paper about that. I'm really happy I was able to share that. Cycling, that's cardio. God. Quite honestly, I'm gassed just doing this show, sitting down here and doing this show. I'm going to need to take a nap after, so I can't even imagine the effort it takes for people to do things like cycling. That's just work, Josh.
I think I would be, now you guys can't make fun of me here. I think because you know my weight, I think I'd be more inclined to ride a bike than I would go for a run. I think biking is just much funner. You go faster, and you can turn. But when I'm stomping on my feet, running my multiple kilometers, that's just boring to me. I just need the action and the thrill of cycling. And doing it stationary in a controlled, cool environment, that sounds ideal. So you bet I'm going to be cycling my butt off at this Soul Cycle Club.
The good thing about it as well is that it is a team aspect. I mean, it's classrooms, it's groups, it's multiple people. So it's encouragement amongst you don't have to do it alone. God, we're turning this into a commercial right now. You're welcome, Rhythm Cycle Club. But again, that's just what it means for Neepawa. So we hope you're going to take a little bit of time and learn a little bit about it.
Also, Eoin, I will kind of wrap up our last little story quick here for you. I'll do a super quick. You can find this full story here in the Neepawa Banner and Press, but the Neepawa Golf Club hosted their Senior Open Championship. Spoiler alert, we have a repeat winner, Ron Cornell, snagging that for the second time. So good for Ron.
Third time, actually, in the last 4 years.
Ooh, that's a dynasty.
You're right about that. I mean, it is very impressive that he's been able to come in, based out of, during the summer months, the Clear Lake Country Club. Lives in Brandon for most of the year, but is based out of Clear Lake. He thoroughly enjoys coming out to Neepawa, though. He says the course is top tier, and he wasn't the only one. There were several people I talked to after the event was done that said the course is looking as good as they have ever remembered. So it's wonderful to hear that, especially with the hot, humid, hazy weather we've been having all summer, to see the course is still top notch. I'm not as big a golfer as I used to be in the 90s, but Josh, you had said something about you're a bit of you enjoy the sport.
Oh, I do enjoy the sport. I know we talk about this at least once a month when I come on the show. I still have not gotten out golfing this summer. I've been more into photography than I have golfing. So golfing has been put on the back shelf, but I do want to get out. I think it's a little bit sacrilegious that me, a Neepawa resident, has not golfed our beautiful 18-hole golf course that's considered one of the best in the province. Who am I? I don't know who I am, but we can figure that out next week on the story behind the pages.
And the story behind the stories.
The story behind the story. I said that so confidently, too.
But I'm going to cut you off here. We're running low on time. We thank you as always. We appreciate your time and your support. And we hope you will tune in for next week's edition of the story behind the pages. Story.
That was close.